Hi, welcome to my book review of SKYWARD by Brandon Sanderson. I filmed a spoiler discussion yesterday and I completely forgot to do the non-spoiler portion, so here we are. So if you have not read this book and don't know what this book is about, to summarize it really quickly, it's about this young girl whose father was a pilot and he ran away during a mission of fighting the alien threat. This alien threat is called the Krell. They're trying to wipe out humanity, and Spencer's father basically ran away during this fight and he was disgraced for it and he was labeled a coward. And Spencer is shamed her entire life because of her father's actions, and it presents a bit of an obstacle in her journey to becoming a pilot herself. Yeah, that's basically what this book is about. She wants to become a pilot. She joins the flight academy and she joins the fight against the Krell. So my feelings on this book are somewhat mixed. My enjoyment level of this book was like 4 stars, I think. But then when I kept on thinking about my frustrations with this book and how much I didn't like certain plot holes that were not addressed, I think that ultimately my rating plummeted down to like 2 to 2.5 stars, maybe 3 stars. I hate to say this because I understand that Brandon Sanderson is a very popular author, but I think this is one of his weakest books, which is kind of ironic considering that I've always said that The Final Empire, which is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, feels a lot like a YA book. And SKYWARD, weirdly enough, doesn't feel like a YA book, it feels like a middle grade book. And I think that presents a lot of issues because Spencer is a young teenage girl and she's involved in a very adult fight against the Krell, yet some of these characters speak like they're in middle school, and it's somewhat grating. People say that Spencer's character is incredibly annoying because she doesn't speak in a very realistic way. She goes extremely over the top. She has these like anime-like scenes where she just like jumps on a desk and just like declaring into the void that she's gonna drink the blood of her enemies, and like, I don't know, her personality is a lot to take. And that was something that it didn't make any sense to me. But before I get into all of that, I'm going to just talk about a few of the positive points I enjoyed about this book. Again, I did enjoy this book, so if you are interested in reading it, don't let me deter you, because again, despite feeling like I really did not enjoy the ultimate product of this book, I did enjoy the process of reading it. I think even on YouTube, I have not seen that many rand reviews. Like, there's literally only one other rand review of SKYWARD, and that makes me a little bit scared, but you know, it's an opinion. It's my opinion. So let me go into the things that I liked about this book. I like the themes about cowardice. Again, Spencer is being treated like she's a coward because her father was a coward, and that again deters her in her journey to become a pilot. But I like that Spencer herself, despite internalizing this message that society has instilled within her, she's really trying hard to break out of this mindset. She's trying hard to prove that she's not a coward, and she's also realizing that it doesn't matter what society thinks. I think that was a really good message. There is an AI character that I really enjoyed. I thought that he was quite funny. Brandon Sanderson's humor does not land well with me, and yet in this case I really like this AI character. I thought he was so funny. He was ridiculously cute. I laughed at most of his dialogue and most of his like lines. I thought those were really funny. In line with that, this AI character is not only funny, I liked his arc as well. There is this whole dialogue between this AI and Spencer and them kind of figuring out, can machines think for themselves? So AI learning to think for itself. That was a really nice theme. I liked the arc. I liked the character development. It was really quite touching. And the philosophical sort of discussions that were like, you know, discussed between this AI and Spencer, I thought those were one of the most compelling aspects of this book. There were also good friendships in this book. I did not like any of the side characters, to be honest with you, but there were some friendships that I thought were quite touching. There is a scene where Spencer's friends take pity on her and they like sneak her into the dorms and they like give her food and like make her comfortable, and there was a really nice moment of bonding between them. That was a moment where I felt that characters become very nuanced and much more realistic than they initially were. Spencer herself becomes much more nuanced exactly at this point, which, you know, is a criticism that I'm gonna, you know, address later on. But for what it's worth, Spencer and a lot of side characters become a lot more fleshed out at this point. So I really like that. I really like the action scenes. The action scenes were super fun. They were extremely I don't know, with action scenes, I think in the previous works for Brandon Sanderson, like in the Mistborn trilogy, I did not like the action scenes whatsoever. They just meandered on and on without, there was no snap to it, there was no flavor to it. But in this case, I think that because there was like a lot of science fiction-y elements involved, there was just this fast fire style of narration, and I thought that was really fun. Yeah, I was pretty impressed by the action scenes because, again, I don't like Brandon Sanderson's action scenes, and yet I think that the action scenes were definitely like one of my favorite aspects of his exposition. Lastly, when it comes to the character Spensa, I don't like Spensa. I'm not a huge fan of her, but I like her arc of starting off as a very arrogant young woman and then learning very quickly that her bravado doesn't really provide much when it comes to actual battle. She always says, I will drink the blood of my enemies, I will crush my enemies, and she's so confident in herself, and yet she's knocked off her high horse very quickly early on when she realizes that some of her classmates that she doesn't like and she thinks that they are privileged, they have a lot more experience than her and they are actually useful in battle, whereas her own self, when in battle, she feels that she's useless. It instills some humility within her, and I thought that was a really nice way of building her character and making her a little bit more likable. Now, a few things that I found a little bit weird. I'm not going to say that I disliked it. Well, I did dislike it, but I didn't hate it though. One of the superiors at the flight academy tends to be, she's kind of a bitch. You kind of wonder, is she going to be the villain? The reader doesn't know yet, but Brandon Sanderson kind of spoils the reader by quickly cutting to like very random snippets into this villain's mindset, and this quick like cut into someone else's mindset and like showing them that they're actually not a bad person, that they're not a villain. I didn't like that, to be honest with you. It was another example of Sanderson tending to spell out his emotions rather than showing them. He just conveniently cuts to another person's POV in order to show they have depth, rather than showing them in situations where they show depth. If that makes any sense. You're just showing what this person is thinking, and you're not really putting them in situations where they're showing nuance. So it was another example of Brandon Sanderson just spelling out emotions, and it felt somewhat cheesy. Lastly, here's why I ultimately did not like this book. I think that, again, it's a really enjoyable read. If you have a mind to read it, don't let me deter you, because again, there are plenty of people who have enjoyed this book. So first off, here's where this book's entire premise crumbles. This society has this unhealthy obsession about cowardice and people being brave in the face of death. Now, this isn't a bad thing, to be honest with you, because I think even in our own society, we tell people to be brave. But the problem with this book is that it takes it to very unhealthy and extreme and unrealistic levels. And because Brandon Sanderson does not really do a good job of explaining why the society's, take on cowardice is this extreme, their treatment of Spensa felt similarly unrealistic to me. Personally, I felt that it was a way to make Spensa feel like this huge underdog, when in fact it's just the author throwing obstacles at her in order to make us sympathize all the more for her and make us, feel like she has a lot to overcome. I go into way more detail in my spoiler review, so if you're interested, you can go check it out. But point is, I'm not a huge fan of how Brandon Sanderson was, skipping all of the setup for the conflict. Like, he was taking the easy way out of setting up the conflicts, setting up the societal mindset, setting up Spensa as an underdog. Right from the beginning, the premise and the setup was incredibly illogical. He forgot all the nuances of why the society should work this way, and I felt that in that aspect, the world building was really bad. The sci-fi elements were really fun. Again, the action scenes were fantastic, but world building also should consist of the society and people's relationship with each other. And I felt that this aspect was done pretty horribly, which is kind of harsh to say, but considering that this entire book's premise and Spensa's journey and Spensa's character development banks entirely on this book's premise of cowardice, and this premise was not set up properly, that's not a good thing. Because if you really ultimately think about it, Spensa's character being extra, I love extra characters, but Spensa's character was unrealistic to the point that I want to smack her. She was so annoying. And I personally would have overlooked Spensa's personality if it showed why she felt this need to put on this bravado. But again, Sanderson doesn't do a really good job of showing why the society has this particular hatred and discrimination of Spensa compared to other people. So I don't know. I didn't really like that. Again, I can explain this way better in my spoiler review, so go check that out if you're interested. So long story short, I don't know if I would recommend it personally, but I think that considering most other people really enjoyed it, go check it out. Don't let my opinions deter you, because again, I enjoyed reading it, which speaks to how many good things about this book there are. So yeah, I ultimately give this book 2.5 stars. I think more on the 2-star spectrum. So in summary, I really liked the action scenes. I thought that M-Bot was super funny. I liked the developments at the end. I thought that was very entertaining. Some of the negative aspects include how the world building of the societal mindset and of how people interact with one another. I thought that was very unrealistic, which completely crumbled the rest of this book. For me, if something goes wrong at the start, and if I don't believe in something at the start, then the rest of that book doesn't really matter to me. So I'm just that kind of reader. But if you're able to overlook this aspect and you're just able to just take things at face value, like, you're gonna have a good time. Thanks for watching. Go check out my spoiler review, because that's a lot more detailed, and I think I explained myself a little bit better there. So, doodles.